What if I told you the machine that invented the modern office was a complete commercial disaster? What if I told you the first American typewriter was slower than a guy with a quill and a hangover? And what if I told you the only working model of that machine was turned into ash by a pile of hot stove ashes in a Washington hotel basement? And the idea still won anyway? On July 23rd, 1829, exactly 197 years ago this week, President Andrew Jackson signed patent number 5581X, not for a steamboat, not for a better plow, for a wooden box roughly the size of a carry-on suitcase, a box with a spinning dial and a swinging lever. Its inventor, a tall Michigan surveyor named William Austin Burt, called it the typographer. History would eventually call it the grandfather of every keyboard you've ever cursed when autocorrect turns "I'm on my way" into "I'm on my yak." I'm James Bay of History Habits. And sitting next to me, or floating, depending on the rendering, my rendering budget, is my AI co-host and professional distraction, Karma.
I smell sawdust, iron ore, and the faint aroma of presidential ink. Also, someone in the comments is already typing, "Actually, the Italians did it first." Calm down, humans. We'll get there.
He's not wrong. Today we're diving into the full, dusty, mosquito-bitten story of the wooden box that whispered the future. 90% pure history, a little motivation at the end that might actually stick with you, and 2 debate questions guaranteed to start a polite civil war in the comments. If you loved underdog inventors, frontier chaos, and machines that failed spectacularly yet still changed the world, you're in the right place. Let's go! William Austin Burt was born June 13th, 1792, in Petersham, Massachusetts, the same year the fledgling United States was still arguing about whether it could survive adolescence. George Washington had just left the presidency. The Northwest Territory was basically one giant mosquito-infested real estate opportunity with occasional bear attacks. Burt's education? Farm work, mills, and tools. He learned the millwright trade, building and repairing water-powered sawmills and gristmills. That means he understood leverage, measurement, and how to make wood and iron behave when they really didn't want to. Perfect training for a man who would later invent both a writing machine and a compass that ignored Earth's magnetic tantrums. In 1813, he married Phoebe Cole. They would have 5 sons: John, Alvin, Austin, Wells, and Horace. Horace. That's a name. The whole family eventually became a surveying dynasty. Think of them as the Von Trapps of township lines.
5 sons who all became surveyors. That's either beautiful family tradition or the most aggressive form of unpaid intern labor in American history. I respect it.
By 1822, the Burts had moved west to what is now Washington Township, Macomb County, Michigan Territory, near a place called Mount Vernon or Stony Creek. Michigan was still a territory. Land was cheap, mosquitoes were expensive. Burt bought land, built at least 8 mills in his lifetime, served as justice of the peace, school inspector, and the first postmaster of Mount Vernon. He even got elected to the territorial legislature. But his real love was surveying. In 1833, he became a United States deputy surveyor. The federal government was busy running the giant rectangular survey grid laid out by the Land Ordinance in 1785. Township, range, section lines, marching across the continent so land could be sold, taxed, and fought over in court for the next 2 centuries. Frontier surveying was brutal. Crews of chainmen, axemen, and flagmen slogged through swamps with Gunter's chains and early compasses. One wrong meridian line and an entire township ends up crooked. Lawsuits for decades. Burt was meticulous. His parties became legendary for accuracy. And then came the invisible enemy, iron. Michigan's bedrock is laced with magnetic materials. A regular compass needle would spin like a drunk sailor every time the crew crossed a deposit. Surveyors wasted days taking multiple readings and cursing the planet itself. That magnetic chaos would later birth Burt's second great invention. But first, the wooden box. Burt first felt the need for a better writing machine while drowning in field notes. Surveyors generated mountains of paper. Bearings, distances, tree blazes, soil descriptions, weather, Indian trails, mineral outcrops, etc. Everything written in ink that smeared when the rain came or the canoe tipped over. He tried shorthand, then he decided the real bottleneck was the human hand itself. What if letters could be selected mechanically and pressed openly onto paper, like a printing press, but portable and one character at a time? Sometime in the mid 1820s, in his workshop near Stony Creek, he began building the typographer. He forged parts himself. The finished machine was a sturdy rectangular wooden box, about 12 inches high, 12 wide, and 18 long. Inside sat a rotating cylinder or dial inscribed with the alphabet numbers and punctuation, upper and lowercase in some accounts. The operator turned the dial into the desired character faced the printing position. Then a lever or hammer was swung down, driving an inked typeface against paper. Paper advanced by hand or simple mechanism. No keys. It was an index typewriter. Select, strike, select, strike.
So it's basically a very angry music box that prints instead of playing Pop Goes the Weasel. I love it. Can we put bacon grease on the dial for authenticity?
It was not fast at all. Contemporary testers and later historians agree. Composing a letter on Burt's typographer took longer than writing the same letter carefully by hand. The dial had to be spun every single character. And then the alignment needed to be watched, and inking was finicky. Yet it produced uniform, legible characters that did not depend on the writer's penmanship or fatigue. Burt saw the future even if the present was busy laughing at him. In May of 1829, nearly 2 months before the patent issued, he wrote a letter on the machine itself and sent it to Martin Van Buren, then the Secretary of State and future president. That letter is often called the first ever written on a typewriter. It was stiff, formal, and proud, an inventor announcing that the age of mechanical writing had begun on the American frontier. On July 23, 1829, the tiny patent office inside Blotched Hotel on E Street in Washington issued the patent. President Andrew Jackson himself, Old Hickory, personally signed it. In those days, patents still carried the president's signature. Burt had beaten every other American inventor to the official record. Debate for you. Was Burt's typographer a genuine breakthrough or just a charming dead end that gets too much credit because it was an American and patented? The Italians had Pellegrino Turri's machine for a blind countess around 1808. No U.S. patent. Obscure. But earlier, who really invented the typewriter? Drop your vote and your hottest take below. Be nice, or at least a little funny. Burt tried to commercialize the typographer. He demonstrated it, sought partners, but nothing happened, unfortunately. The American economy of 1829 was still agrarian and artisanal. Offices were tiny. Clerks wrote with quills or steel pens. There was no mass market for a machine that cost money and time to learn when a 15-cent pen and a bottle of ink would do. The typographer became a curiosity stored in the patents office, a collection of models. Then came the night of December 15, 1836. The patent office still shared Blodgett's Hotel with the post office and a fire company. Employees had the charming habit of dumping hot ashes from stoves into the basement near piles of firewood. Around 3 a.m., the ashes found the wood. The fire roared upward. Local fire equipment was ancient. The hoses failed. Bucket brigades couldn't stop it. In less than 20 minutes, the building collapsed. Approximately 9,957 patents and 7,000 models, every patent granted since 1790, went up in smoke. Robert Fulton's original steamboat drawings burned as well. Eli Whitney's cotton gin models burned. And William Austin Burt's wooden typographer, the only working prototype of America's first typewriter, burned to ash.
They stored the entire American invention record next to the hot ashes pile. That's not a fire hazard, that's a comedy roast waiting to happen. Who was in charge of risk management? A golden retriever? Oh, wait.
Congress later authorized reconstruction. Inventors who still had drawings or duplicates could refile. Only about 2,845 patents were restored and given new X numbers. Burt's typographer was among the lost. No original models survived. We know it only from patent drawings, partially reconstructed, and from memory. Contemporary descriptions and a few replicas. The fire is one of the great accidental erasures in American technological history. It forced the patent office to modernize. Numbered patents, multiple copies, fireproof buildings. But it also turned Burt's first machine into a ghost. Here's the beautiful, brutal part. The physical object vanished. The idea refused to die, though. Ideas are harder to burn than wood. Burt did not sulk, though. He went back to the work that paid and fascinated him. In 1835, while surveying near the Wisconsin Upper Peninsula border country, his magnetic compasses went completely insane. The needles spun. He ordered his crew to dig. They found iron ore, rich, magnetic, and abundant. Burt realized ordinary compasses were useless over large parts of the mineral-rich Great Lakes region. He needed an instrument that found true north from the sun, not from the Earth's magnetic field. So by December 1835, he had sketched the solar compass. He sent a model to instrument maker William J. Young in Philadelphia. In 1836, he received the patent. The solar compass used a polar axis, latitude and declination arcs, and a sighting system to align with the sun's position and determine the true meridian. Once set, it could run lines independent of local magnetism. The Franklin Institute awarded him the John Scott Medal for that. The United States General Land Office adopted it. For the rest of the 19th century and well into the 20th, solar compasses were standard equipment for surveying the mineral West. They remained in use until GPS satellites finally made them obsolete.
So the guy invents a writing machine that nobody wants, then invents a compass that everyone needs, because the ground is full of the metal that will eventually build better writing machines. That's not irony. That's the universe doing stand-up.
With the solar compass, Burt and his son surveyed thousands of miles of township lines across Michigan. In September of 1844, while running lines near present-day Marquette, Burt's party discovered the vast iron ore deposits of the Marquette Range, one of the richest iron formations on the planet. That discovery and later copper finds turned Michigan's Upper Peninsula into an industrial powerhouse. The ore floated down the Great Lakes on schooners and later freighters, fed the blast furnaces of Pittsburgh and Cleveland, and helped build the railroads, skyscrapers, and battleships of the American century. Burt did not own the mines. He simply found them while doing his job and having a better tool. He also helped establish the northern point of the Michigan Principal Meridian, surveyed the Michigan-Wisconsin boundary, and worked on preparations for the Sault Ste. Marie Canal that eventually would open Lake Superior to the world. In 1853, he served in the Michigan State Legislature. In 1857, he moved to Detroit. He died there on August 18, 1858, at the age of 66, and was buried in Elmwood Cemetery. His 5 sons continued the surveying tradition. A historical plaque still stands near his old home. The solar compass is remembered in surveying museums. The typographer is usually a footnote until someone on a July morning remembers the wooden box. Debate number 2. Which invention mattered more in the long run? The typographer that failed commercially but planted the seed of mechanical writing, or the solar compass that immediately made accurate surveying possible over magnetic chaos and literally helped unlock the iron that built modern America? Pick a side. Defend it. I'll be reading the best arguments. The typographer failed as a product and succeeded as a seed. It proved the mechanical selection and impression of characters was possible on a portable scale. It showed that uniform, repeatable writing could be produced without a full printing press. It planted the idea in the American patent record and in the minds of later inventors who had better materials, better markets, and better timing. Christopher Lathan Scholes, Carlos Glidden, and Samuel L. Soule built a practical typewriter in Milwaukee in the 1860s. They sold the rights to E. Remington & Sons, the gunmakers, who brought out the first commercial machine in 1874. The QWERTY layout was designed to keep frequently used letter pairs from jamming the type bars. Mark Twain became one of the first authors to deliver a typewritten manuscript. By the 1880s, offices were filling with the clatter. Women entered the workforce as typists in huge numbers. Business correspondence exploded. Newspapers could set type faster. The telephone and the typewriter together created the modern office. Carbon paper, mimeographs, electric machines, selectric balls, word processors, personal computers with keyboards that still carry the ghost of QWERTY. All descended, however indirectly, from the principle Burt patented in July 23, 1829. a machine that lets a human choose a character and force it onto a surface without the mediation of a pen held in a trembling hand. Burt's machine was slower than handwriting. That is the part most people remember and laugh at. But speed was never the only metric. Legibility, permanence, and the removal of individual variation were the real gifts. A clerk with bad penmanship could now produce documents as clean as a master penman. A surveyor's field notes could be standardized. The idea was bigger than the first execution. The 1836 fire that destroyed the prototype is almost poetic. The physical object vanished, yet the idea refused to die.
So the moral is, if your first version is slower than doing it by hand and then it burns down, you're basically on the same path as the guy who helped invent modern civilization. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. No pressure on my next prototype.
Now the part that actually matters for you. The outcome of July 23, 1829 was not immediate riches. It was a deliberately imperfect prototype that planted a permanent seed. Most modern advice screams, ship fast, iterate publicly, fail forward in public. Burt did the opposite. He built something slower than the status quo, showed it to almost no one commercially, lost the physical object, and still won the long game because the idea was sound and the need was real. Here is the slow prototype forge, a protocol deliberately unlike every hustle culture checklist on the internet. It is designed for people who keep starting things that feel clunky, slow, or incomplete, and then abandon them because they do not look like the polished final products they see online. Number 1, identify one recurring friction that costs you mental energy every week. Not a vague dream, a concrete irritation. Write it in one ugly sentence on paper tonight. Number 2, build the slowest possible physical prototype that removes 20% of that friction. Nothing digital, nothing shareable, nothing optimized. A notebook, index cards in a box, a wall calendar with one sentence a day in permanent marker. If it feels efficient, make it clumsier. Clumsiness forces attention. Number 3, use it exclusively for 23 days, the number of the patent date, without improving it, photographing it, or telling anyone. No accountability partner, no Instagram, just raw use. Number 4, at the end of 23 days, private autopsy with these 3 questions only. What did this capture that I would have lost? Where did the friction reappear? What is the smallest mechanical improvement for version 1.1? Then build only that one improvement. Number 5, repeat the sealed 23-day cycle 4 times, 92 total days. Only then consider cleaning it up or teaching it. Number 6, once a year, near July 23rd, hold a private patent office fire ritual. Store the current prototype or deliberately destroy the superseded version. Write a 1-page restored patent of what the idea has become. Force the idea to live independently of single objects. Number 7, never measure by speed or volume. Measure only by future decisions made easier or forgotten lessons resurrected. Burt's machine was slower than handwriting. That was not a bug. It was a feature that proved mechanical writing was possible at all. Your imperfect version does not have to change the world this month. It only has to survive long enough for the world or your own later self to need it. Build the box, spin the dial, press the lever, let the fire come if it must. The idea is harder to burn than wood.
I'll keep the squirrels of distraction away while you build yours. Deal?
If this story of a wooden box that failed its way into forever hit you the way it hit me, do the algorithm a solid. Hit like. Drop a comment with your answer to one of the debate questions, or tell me what clunky prototype you're going to build for the next 23 days. Subscribe and ring the bell so that you never miss another underdog who refused to stay buried. And share this with one person who needs to hear that their imperfect first version is allowed to be slow. I'm James Bay of History Habits. This is Karma.
Build the box. Ignore the squirrels. See you in the next one.
The surveyor from Macomb County already did the hard part on a July day in 1829. The rest is up to the person holding the next blank page. Go make some history.